Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, moni muliwanji, namaste, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jadley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We're coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so delighted and so very honored that you are joining us in our mission to help families grow closer through reading. Please do be sure to subscribe to the show in the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever you find your podcasts. Our guest today is Dr. Regine Muradian. She is here to celebrate the third book in her Francine series. It's called Francine and Her Special Talents. Before we invite Dr. Regine into the studio, we want to let you know that this episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is brought to you by I'm a Gluten-Sniffing Service Dog, written by Michel Babé. Do you love books about dogs, about friendship, food? Meet Chewy, the goofiest gluten-sniffing dog in town. I'm a Gluten-Sniffing Service Dog is based on Michel's personal experiences with her daughter's celiac journey, with back matter chock full of gluten-free kibbles and tips. Readers can increase their knowledge about this autoimmune disease known as celiac. The book is sure to warm your heart and give you gluten-free giggles. I'm a Gluten-Sniffing Service Dog by Michel Babé is a great addition to any family library. Check it out today. Join us right now from the beautiful city of Los Angeles in California. Our guest is returning to the show to celebrate the third book in her beautiful Francine series. The new book is called Francine and Her Special Talents. Please welcome back to the show, Dr. Regine Muradian. Hey, Regine, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? So glad to be back on with you.
I'm so happy to have you back. It's a wonderful day here in Boston. It's a cold day here in Boston, but it's supposed to be cold in the winter, so I guess we have to be thankful for that. I'm really thankful that Francine is back with a third book, and Francine is making a big impact in the lives of kids all around the world.
Yes, she is. So, and you had me on before. It was Frankie and the Worry Bees was getting a little lonely, so I had to bring in a second character, which is Francine. And as you know, Frankie, I have two books in the Frankie series, Frankie and the Worry Bees, and then Frankie and his homeschool adventures. And now I'm working on, so my third book is Francine and Her Special Talents. And currently in the works, I haven't really talked much about it, but my fourth book, which is going to be, again, about Francine and her international adventures. So trying to expand Francine a little bit.
Now, Francine and Frankie, they have a mission beyond just entertaining kids and giving families a great experience sitting together and reading together. There's a real specific purpose why you're creating these books.
Yeah. So Frankie, like how he started during the pandemic was really about raising emotional awareness, communication, talking about our thoughts and our feelings, and really teaching kids how to talk about emotions. And Francine, is also coming into this role with this book. This is actually Francine's first book, but my third in my series with her character, which is really to encourage kids and empower them that they can do whatever they want to do, whatever they put their mind to, and that each child is so unique and can accomplish anything they set their mind. And I think we really saw this during the pandemic, right? When we were all home, how kids started becoming so creative and started creating their own businesses and really started thinking outside the box because they weren't as busy. And Francine is just there to kind of inspire kids all over the world and doing really what they love and finding what that is. Because I really believe we each have our own talent.
Yeah. You mentioned, that kids weren't as busy during the pandemic. And, there's there are a lot of consequences of that. one of the things that we talked about before the pandemic started happening is the fact that these days kids are really busy and maybe too busy with kind of structured activities. Am I crazy thinking that?
Yes, I think we came such a long way, right? Kids returned back in September, right? They, I think, well, depending on where you are in the world, I mean, us in the United States, from what I gather, we were out for about 18 months in distance learning, whereas in Europe, it was much, much less. So different perspectives there. But overall, here in the U.S., I think what we've been seeing is, you know, parents getting really excited that we're back to somewhat of a normal. Not that we're now. I know it's like December and Omicron is upon us. But what's really happening is we just got so excited and want to keep our kids so busy. And I've been talking a lot about taking it slow and having them really choose one thing that they really love. And this is really the big premise with Francine. It's so interesting because I wrote this before we even went back. So I kind of always emphasize really focusing on one thing that you really love, versus pushing kids into doing something they don't like. Like we've heard many stories like that, right? Where parents will push them to do swimming or a certain instrument that they hate and they're not enjoying.
Yeah, and the other thing that I think parents don't realize is that kids change. And what a kid might be passionate about at 7 years old and you get 100% behind and you're very supportive of, and then some parents have a hard time letting that go when the child turns 8, 9, or 10 years old and isn't quite as passionate about that thing anymore.
Yes, that's so accurate. I mean, kids are constantly changing. You know, they may try, if we go into instruments, they may try the violin, they may try the guitar, they may try the piano, and then, you know, not really enjoy anything. But I think that the trick here is, as a parent, is to really find that fine line and to see, is it that they don't want to practice that instrument, that they're really not enjoying it? Because I think a little bit of push is important, because if we let kids make all the decisions, they just won't do anything. So I think it's just up to the parent to really gauge on a scale from 0 to 10, 10 being the worst, how much do they really hate or dislike that particular sport or activity that they're doing. I think that's the question to really ask.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, one of the things we did with my son, and we were really, you know, my daughter had this passion for dance and she was really focused on it. My son just kind of wasn't, there was nothing that was getting him charged. And then one day he said, I want to play football. And I was very surprised. And I said, okay. And we were going down. We're going to make the investment, pay the money and whatnot. And I said to him, I said, you don't have to do this for the rest of your life, but you do have to do it for the season. If you're signing up, we're making this commitment. You're going to make the commitment and you're going to finish it. It's going to be this long, 8 weeks, 9 weeks. But that's different than, you know, saying, hey, you're playing football, you're doing dance forever.
Yes. Yeah. It's so true. And so what happened?
He loved it, although it was really kind of funny. So we went in and we're at the football stadium and we're there and I'm like, okay, Chris, I'm going to write this check. I give it to him. You know, you're on board. Yes. Okay, fine. And I handed over the check and then we walked down the hallway and he started getting his pads and his helmet. He turned to me and goes, what do I need this for? And I'm like, dude, this is football. This is tackle. And he goes, what? And I go, too late. But he ended up playing through Pop Warner and a couple years in high school. And he had a lot of fun. He made a lot of friends. And that's basically what it was for him. It was just a great way for him to socialize and be a knucklehead guy, which a lot of guys his age like to do, just bang into each other.
Yeah. And I think also you bring up an important point is honoring a commitment. You know, let's say that you signed him up for that sport. I mean, gosh, my son, he was playing flag football and he's played baseball and he's played basketball. I just want to say within these last 3 months, just one at a time. And of course, there's times where he wanted to give up. Oh, I don't like it. I don't want to do it anymore. But one thing we talk about a lot is honoring that commitment. So if you signed up for a 6-week class, I want you to finish the 6-week class. And if you really don't like it at the end of the 6 weeks, then you don't have to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I know a lot of parents may frown at that and, really believe in pushing them to that limit or, pushing them to do it. But I really believe in loving what you do, because when you love what you do as a child and as a teen, and you start discovering who you are and taking control of things that you want to do, I think that bleeds in also into adulthood. And we talk a lot about work and passion and loving what you do, because when you love what you do, then it's not work anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I totally agree. It's, I think it's important for parents, for us to listen to our kids, not only listening to them when they come to us and tell us they're being bullied or they're frustrated or, that they're feeling bad, but also just listen to what their behaviors are telling us.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. And I think that's when we kind of have to step back and just validate, listen, and hear their reasons, because a lot of the times they do have good reasons, but I think that's where the negotiation happens. And I think negotiation is an important skill to learn at a young age, so that they feel that they have a part of that decision making. Because when they feel that they're a part of the decision making, then it's so interesting how things just kind of start shifting, right? There's no more struggle. There's no more conflict. And you just allow them to step back and really think about, well, why don't you write down the top 3 things that you really love? What is it? What is it that you love?
That's real important. Hey, you mentioned that the book number 4 in the series, Francine's going to be traveling, an international traveler. One of the things that I've really enjoyed doing, I've become friends with so many of the guests who've been on the show. Regine and I have been buddies, and I've been following you in your international travels. You had a pretty special experience in Monaco. Can you share a little bit of that with us?
So, a lot of people don't know, I've been living in the States since 96, but, that's where I grew up. So lived there pretty much, from 2nd grade or 1st grade. I can't really remember right now. All the way to, high school. And that's another adventure after high school, but I'll run you through my connection with Monaco. It's a very dear place to my heart. It's really where feels home. Yes, the United States is home, but that's was my first home. And it was so amazing. I had this incredible opportunity, to be, invited at the, Princess Grace Irish Library, where I was able to do my very, very first, not only for me, but also for them. We did a collaboration, in launching Frankie and the Worry Bees in French. So of course, Frankie was originally in English, but it was really important for me to do it in my second language. And really the purpose and the excitement for them was creating awareness and decreasing mental health stigma, and bringing kids, in the Francophone community, because in Monaco you have English speakers, you have French speakers. So we were able to, it was really great turnout. We had quite a few, we had, especially in this pandemic, it was pretty amazing, the turnout, and just having kids there. And we did the reading in English, we did it in French, and, I was able to really engage them. I want to bring up one particular kid, because this will really hit it for me in terms of why I do what I do. Is, we were talking about emotions, and it was so interesting because kids were just flabbergasted in that, and just looking at me like, what does that even mean? What is an emotion? And it's something that I quite often see so much, where kids don't understand because we're not talking about it enough at home. And this little girl was so cute, and she said, I think she was 7, she goes, "But I'm happy all the time." And that really stuck with me. And I said, of course you're happy all the time, but sometimes we also have emotions where we don't feel too good, or something happened at school, that feeling, because if you don't express and talk about that feeling, you tend to internalize it, and then it creates other issues. So that right there for me, I think afterwards, the parent was just letting me know that that was so great, and how they were able to use afterwards the activity, and just create this as a gate opener just also in the international community and in other countries that are not so open with mental health and talking about emotions, I think at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things that you and I talked a little bit about here is, here in the States, we still have a long way to go, but we've started to talk about emotions, and we started to talk to our kids about identifying their emotions and expressing their emotions and finding ways to deal with their emotions in healthy ways. And like I said, we still have a long way to go in terms of social emotional education. But I'm getting the feeling that we're ahead of a lot of other countries. Am I right about that? Is that something that you've experienced?
Yes. I mean, so far, just even the places I've visited or spoken, done international events such as maybe readings on Zoom, et cetera. I have noticed there's actually a huge interest. I think their arms are open. They want to learn more. I think it's just how do we create that conversation and take away pretty much the psychology part of it, where is there something wrong with me, right? Let's take that away. And that's part of decreasing the stigma and talking about how we feel. You see, this is the big part. But all of this, and I say this every time, even when I do a reading, is this all starts at home. And this last time, I'm going to tell you, when I was there, I was there in September when I did my book launch, but I went again in November, just recently. And I did a writing workshop, and I also did another presentation for the kids at my old school. And it was so interesting because the teachers they loved the theme and they got it, but they were like, I don't think they kind of realized the impact that the book could have. And I never know either until I'm in that situation. So what happened was I told the teachers, I want you to make a photocopy. You can make a photocopy of my activity at the end of the book, which is just Frankie with 2 bubbles over his head, and have the kids write down all their negative thoughts or whatever it is that's negative. And their hands kept on flying. I mean, I couldn't even reach all of the kids. I mean, they had so much to share. And I was almost in tears because I was in shock, really. But at the same time, I knew the power of the book. And then the teachers were in shock. I think that was the beauty. And they later on came and told me that they put all over the wall in their classrooms, Frankie's picture with what the kids wrote. It was amazing. So I think that, when we go back and we look at how things are in the United States, how things are in Europe, what are the shifts? I mean, I've never seen that here in the US done, right? So as many readings as I've done. So I think that was such a beautiful thing. But I think we're all, like you said, we're learning, we're expanding, we're talking more about it, we're making it more aware. And I think that's what's important. Yeah.
Well, I think one of the things that maybe families are dealing with, it's like this whole idea of how am I gonna help my kid process their emotions when I really don't know how to do it for myself all that well.
Yes, I love it. Well, that's I love it because that's what I call the role modeling. So it's what I tell teachers all the time. I say, well, you can't blame a teacher for what they don't know, right? Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing for parents. And that's why, it's so important that when parents are seeking advice or they're seeking guidance or on how to do it, I think that the first thing is like you're realizing, oh, wow, I do that sometimes, or I don't do this enough. Now I'm going to be different. Now I'm going to change things around. I think that's the power of change right there. And any parents listening right now, there are so many not the emojis, mm-hmm. but emotion charts online. I love Teachers Pay Teachers. It's one of my favorite sites. And there's so many other ones where you will actually find the exact words and you can kind of print these emotions out. And the emotions go like this. It says, it has every emotion in the dictionary: frustrated, angry, overwhelmed, happy, feeling good, whatever it is. And I like to refer to that. I use this also with my clients because half the time when you ask a teenager or a kid, how are you? What do they say?
Fine.
Fine. Right?
Yep. Leave me alone.
How are you today, Jed?
Yeah, I'm all right.
I always say, when you pass someone by on the street, how are you? Oh, I'm good.
Yeah.
Does somebody really stop and say, okay, do you really want to know how I'm doing?
Well, I have to tell you, oftentimes when I'm in the supermarket, it drives my daughter crazy, especially when she was a teenager. The cashier would go, "Hey, how are you today?" I'm like, "Wow, I am fantastic. I had this great time." Let me tell you what just happened. And my daughter just turns and walks away, and the person behind the cash register is like, whoa, no, I was being polite. I really don't care.
I don't really want to hear how you really are, even if it's good. But I think it's just a cultural thing, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
In the States, we always ask that question. Yes.
Yeah. I love that we're having these conversations. I remember, back around that same time when we were talking about my son playing football, I started to notice that I was yelling a lot at home. And, I'm up on stage and talking to 500 kids. My voice has to be loud. And that's great when I'm in front of an audience of 500 kids. It's not great when I'm sitting at the dinner table. And if I get frustrated or whatever, that voice should never get that loud. And I actually kept the chart. You're talking about the emotions chart. I just kept the daily chart of, did I yell today? And it was really helpful because it really quickly, when I would look at the end of the month, and I'm like going, whoa, there are too many days when I yelled. And so I quickly trained myself to quiet down and to speak more.
Yes. And that's you being aware.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Right.
Yeah.
So that's wonderful.
Yeah. I'm excited. You're talking about kind of spreading this message around the globe, and so far your books are available in English and French and Armenian.
Yes.
That's wonderful. And I know you're working on having them available in Japanese.
So yes, I have a friend. We were looking into that, and and again, thinking about Japan and just culturally,
Mm-hmm.
How mental health is viewed there, and how to, and just again, going back to communication and emotions, and it's all about teaching our young kids, right, and teaching parents, and just again, the message is really about breaking the stigma.
Yeah.
And I think when parents alike and teachers and caregivers start seeing that shift and change, and they start seeing their kids feeling good and better and expressing themselves, I think there's just, there's going to be more acceptance and more awareness to a lot of these type of books.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think they're a big benefit for families because they do. It's to have that conversation about emotions when it's just from out of nowhere. Okay, son, let's sit down and talk about our emotions. That doesn't work so well. But when we're talking about Frankie or Francine, we're talking about what the characters in the book are feeling and what they might be experiencing emotionally. It's a lot easier to talk about that and then maybe also kind of reflect and say, oh, I feel like that sometimes, or even ask, do you ever feel like that sometimes?
Yes, exactly. And, I know we also have a lot of authors on here who are listening.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I do usually during my readings is I'm not just reading the book. I'm also engaging the kids during the reading and asking them, well, what do you think Frankie's feeling right now? What do you think Frankie's going to do next? And has anyone felt like Frankie did? And I think kids, like you said, I feel like when they identify with another character, not only do they identify with the character, but they also start opening up about their own emotions. Mm-hmm. And I think you could do this with any book, really. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be a book about emotions. It could be any story, because every story has a meaning and has a message.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, one of the messages that this podcast is having is just how important it is to talk with our kids and have that communication, and how beneficial it is to read with our kids, not only to help them increase their vocabulary, but to help them, develop an emotional vocabulary so they can identify those feelings and talk about them.
Yes, absolutely. That's why I love your show.
Thank you. Well, I love your books, and I know people are going to want to know where they can go to find your books.
So my books are available on Amazon. They're also available on my website, which is Regine, Regine Muradian, M as in Mary, URAD as in David, IAN.com /books. And they're also available Barnes & Noble online. So those are 3 ways you can purchase them.
Yeah. And you can also learn a lot more about you at your website, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we've had a great time speaking to the author of Francine and Her Special Talents, the 3rd book in a beautiful series from our guest, Dr. Regine Muradian. Hey, Regine, thank you so very much for being back with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We have 2 great guests. Dr. Dawn Menge will be returning to the show with her friend and co-author Kent Duryea. They'll be here to celebrate Queen Venita visits the land of Little Rain. That's the next episode of the podcast. I had my first visit to the land of Little Rain this past fall. It was a blast. It was also a blast talking to Dr. Dawn and Kent. You don't want to miss it. Hey, if you're the author of a fantastic children's book, please do visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Click on the Authors Click Here button at the top of the page and scroll on down to learn all about the different ways we can help you celebrate your fantastic children's book. You can be a guest on the podcast. Being a guest, it's fun, it's easy. It doesn't cost you a thing, and it gives you the chance to tell thousands of people about your fantastic book. You can submit your book to our certified great read panel, and if they believe that your book is worthy of 4 or 5 out of 5 stars, it becomes a certified great read, and with that status comes a whole lot of great promotional tools that will let folks know that your book is worthy of their consideration. You can also take part in our monthly promotion program that will celebrate your books through commercials on the podcast, through messages to our 65,000 plus social media followers, and we'll have your book displayed on our nationwide network of digital pedestrian billboards. What a treat! Check it out today. Go to our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Click on the Authors Click Here button. Scroll on down to the different services. Want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, I want to start by thanking our guest, Dr. Regine Muradian. Please be sure to check out Francine and Her Special Talents. Also, want to thank our sponsor, I'm a Gluten-Sniffing Service Dog by Michel Babé. Check it out today, a great book. My team deserves a great thank you. Alejandra Doherty, Fatima Khan, Rory Grady. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we think you deserve a thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today, and as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place. And you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.